Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. This should have gone out a little while ago, but we just haven't had time. This is our latest addition to the fleet, and it is a BMW Z3M Coupe. Now, if you guys know me personally or you follow me on Instagram, you would have known I had one of these previously in around 2003 to 2006, but I had to sell the car to help fund the business. But I'm really happy now to say everything's come back round and we have another one. So I have bought this car jointly with my business partner from Imran Bilal, because he also owned one. But I will get him in the car and we'll have a little chat about when we own the cars and how we feel about having another one. So this car is finished in Titan Silver. The earlier ones were Arctic Silver. And when I say earlier ones, the earlier ones actually came with the S50 engine from the E36 M3 Evo. And this particular one, the later ones, and there's not that many of them, come with the S54 engine from the E36 M3. So BMW quote the S54 in the E46 at around 343 horsepower, and in the Z3M they quote it at 325, and that's due to a reduction in the RPM limiter. But in reality, when we've had these cars on the dyno, I haven't really noticed that much of a difference. But if you guys know us and you're looking at this engine bay, you can already guess what's going to go in here. Yes, the Evolve carbon airbox. So the E46 airbox doesn't fit directly in here. It does require a little modification, so we're just having a special one made with the cone adjusted for the suspension turret. But I can't wait to get that on and experience that wonderful induction noise. So let's look at the design of the car. It is very iconic, and the engine is what a lot of people say makes an M car. But what else does this car have that's different to the normal Z3? To begin with, there's this side grille here, which is one of my favorite features on the car. So that is very reminiscent of the BMW 507. Also, the wing mirrors, they're oval instead of being slightly rectangle. And inside you can see the rear view mirror is also oval instead of being rectangle. At the back of the car, you can see the arches are actually quite a lot wider than the standard Z3, and that's also true of the front. Looking at the side profile of the car, this is what is the most iconic part about this car. The long sweeping bonnet, the shooting brake look at the back, or little estate, and that gives its nickname, which is bread van in the UK, and in the USA a lot of people call it the clown shoe. You can see it's not like any other car because the front is very long and you almost feel like you're sitting on the rear axle, which is here, and then the car just ends, so it gives it a very short stubby back. Coming around to the rear of the car, you can actually appreciate how much wider this is to a normal Z3 and what gives it this really squat stance. It really is impressive and it makes it look like nothing else on the road. And even though it's a two-seater, it actually does have a hatch and a semi-practical boot. I'm not going to say you're going to be able to do trips to IKEA in it, but a lot of people did have their dogs in the back of this, and that's why it actually has a dog guard. And if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the marketing material actually showed dogs going into the back of this car. Also on the back, it has quad exhaust, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is the first M car that actually had quad exhaust, because the E46 M3 came after this. Now, you've probably noticed that this car isn't standard. We have already changed the wheels to BBS LMs. Now, when this car was out, the standard wheels actually very good and suited the car really well, and it was very difficult to put an aftermarket wheel on the car and still retain the cool design features of it. And I was very lucky that when we bought this car, I was able to locate a set of almost new BBS LMs in the correct sizes and offsets, and they were exactly what we wanted. I think they suit the car perfectly. We don't have too many plans to modify it apart from the airbox. If I can, or if anyone has any, I am interested in the AC Schnitzer front flippers and the rear wing. So if anyone has any of those lying around, give me a shout, because I'll take them off your hands. And when this design came out in 1998, it was very Marmite, and I'll be honest, I didn't like it. As soon as I saw it, I thought, what the hell is that ugly thing? Yet 5 or 6 years later, I found myself lusting after one and I actually bought one. Does that sound reminiscent of what's going on now with BMW's new designs? A lot of hate for them, but is that going to mean that in 5 or 6 years time you're all going to get used to it and then you'll actually be wanting them? Time will tell. The design is very iconic, and when the FF came out from Ferrari, I had very much Z3M Coupe vibes about that car, and more recently the Supra. As soon as I saw the Supra and drove it, I did really have vibes of the Z3M Coupe going through that. Inside the cabin, it's very retro and functional. I really love the chrome rings around the speedo, the water temp and the fuel gauge, and that's also carried over through here. You can see there's not many controls going on here. It's not like modern cars where you have lots of functionality, and I think that's one of the beauties of this car. It's actually quite simple. One of the things I don't like, and which I probably want to change, is the steering wheel. I just feel that it's a little bit too big. The interior in this is actually quite rare because most of them had a two-tone interior. So if you had a silver car, you'd have silver two-tone leather, but this is actually all black. But you can actually see the seats also have a very retro vibe to them, and they're actually not bad in terms of supportiveness. When the cars were newer, a lot of my friends that were tracking them did swap them out for Recaros, but for road use, these are absolutely fine. So that's enough of me waffling about the car. Bilal also owned this. I'm going to go grab him, we'll go for a drive, and we'll get his thoughts on what it was like when he owned it and what it feels like now owning one again after all this time. So Bilal, Z3M, how does it feel?
I feel like I'm young again. So my hair's coming back.
That's not happening yet. So you obviously owned one around the same time that I did.
Yeah, so what was that, about 12 years ago?
2003, 2006, around that time.
Yeah, around that time. I had a black one with two-tone black red leather interior.
Yep.
And then I lowered it with, what was it, H&R springs and
Bilstein
boosting.
V8s. Yeah, so it's basically similar setup to this, but this has got Intract springs instead.
Okay.
So let's start the car up. We'll go for a quick drive. You can remind yourself of what it's like, and we can have a quick chat about the car. So you had an E36 M3 Evo before?
I had two of those before the Z3M. And I remember actually you had your one before I had mine.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So I saw your one, the silver one, at a show.
So did I influence you?
I love that car anyway, and when I saw your one,
He doesn't want to admit it.
I need to get one of those now. But and back then they were cheap.
They were less than 20k, I think.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Much less. Yeah. I can't remember what I paid for mine.
S54s were a good one was 20,000, but I think the S50s dropped down to around 12, 13.
Yes.
And that was the bottom price.
And I think so. Mine was that engine, and it was. I mean, it wasn't the fastest thing in the world, but just the car itself was special.
It's so cool. Just driving this around today and people looking at it. But yeah, you'll probably notice with this, there's something not right with the steering. I think there's a lot of play in the steering wheel. So there's a bush, there's some bushings that are not.
There's a lot of play.
Yeah, so that needs to be addressed. There's little things with this that need to be addressed to make it perfect. I think the other thing we're going to do is change the steering rack for purple tag.
Okay.
To give it a shorter ratio. And you'll notice there's something very wrong with the gear knob. What's wrong with the gear knob? There's something like glaringly obviously wrong with it. Should be a Storm one.
Oh, of course. Yeah, got that notchy feeling.
Yeah, the notchy feeling, yeah. So what else does Storm do for that? Do you do the cigarette lighter as well?
Plug, handbrake handle.
Okay, cool. So are we getting a sponsor deal for those?
I'll speak to the boss. Okay. I know someone. Wow, I'm using my left foot as well.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, Bilal's daily driver is a Tesla. Yes, people, a Tesla. So he doesn't even have to drive it.
I feel like I need to justify myself every time you mention that. It's because I do an hour a day each way in the motorway. So it's no fun driving.
Let us know in the comments if you think that's justification.
Yeah,
anyway, but back to, well, at least you've got petrol cars to drive, right?
Of course
So this is a nice petrol car. Remind you of your youth. Your hair's growing back.
Yeah.
So you haven't. When did you sell yours? 2007, 8?
I didn't have mine for that long. I think it was just over a year, and then I think I wanted an E46 after that, M3. sold that and then instantly regretted it because it was such a special car, and then everything else I just felt normal after that.
So you've got a direct comparison between E36 and this car. So what's the main differences between the E36 M3 and the Z3M?
Well, obviously this one's got the S54.
Now it has, yeah.
So it does feel much more responsive.
Yeah.
But
what about in terms of handling?
I'd say it does feel similar, but this one, because of the size of it, just feels much more compact.
Yeah.
I think that's a psychological thing as well, because you're sitting in a much more...
I would say this feels livelier. I think the rear suspension on the E36 is slightly more sophisticated than this. So I think it actually felt more capable. But this, because the axle's basically E30 M3, is a bit more lively, so I think it gave you that feeling of excitement.
Yeah, you're right now. I haven't driven this. Well, this is the first time I'm driving it now, but going back, I do remember my black one. When you put your foot down and it's a bit damp on the road,
it's skittish.
The back end doesn't, gets a bit happy. So I remember, that's more involved in driving than the E36.
And the other thing, because you're sitting so far back, you're almost on the rear wheels. It does give you that feeling. Take it right.
Yeah, because this feels like a hot rod.
Yeah. It looks like a hot rod.
It looks like a hot rod. You look in the rearview mirrors, you see those big arches. Look at that front bonnet. It's way in front of you.
And I've mentioned it before in this video when you weren't in it, that when we test drove the Supra for the first time, it instantly reminded us of this car.
100%.
And that's the first time I've driven another car that's actually reminded me of an M Coupe. I feel that Mark V Supra is a modern day M Coupe in many ways.
Yeah, it's got that same sort of feeling of where you are in the car.
Yeah.
Right over the rear wheels with the front bonnet.
Yeah, very long front bonnet.
But yeah, this feels so analog.
Very analog is a kind way of putting it. But as I said, there is a few things we need to sort out. I mean, the car is actually very clean. The previous owner, he didn't actually have the car up for sale. The story goes that me and Bilal decided that we wanted a Z3M Coupe. I put up a message on the forum, z3mcoupe.com, which I was a member of a very long time ago. And then I had 3 people contact me for cars that weren't for sale. This one was low owners, I think 3 owners, 68,000 miles, S54, which is what we wanted.
Yeah.
And I went down, saw Rohit, and he was very reluctant, but he ended up selling the car to us, which I was happy about. But he looked after it really well. It's got a big stack of bills, but there's just a few things we have to do to get it up to be perfect. For a 20-year-old car, it's in fairly good condition.
You'd expect that for a car of this age. The main thing is it's a genuine car.
Yep.
It's an honest car.
Oh, it's got full BMW service history as well, if that means anything. Yeah. So it's very rare for a car of this age to have full BMW service history.
Yeah, I think both of us have wanted another Z3M Coupe for a long time.
We've wanted one for probably the last 5 years, and we've sat there and we've watched the prices keep creeping up, creeping up. Then we're finally in a position to buy one. I could have probably bought one cheaper a few years ago, but we're here now.
Yeah, we weren't ready, but now we're ready, and we just, I don't think there's a price that you can put on the joy you get out of something like this, which you've owned before.
Yeah.
And you want it back, and
definitely some
connection.
Nostalgia.
100%.
Yeah, you're definitely paying for nostalgia at that point.
You're paying for memories almost,
Yeah.
Like, this is bringing back memories. I remember driving this to and from work when I used to have it, and it just felt like an occasion every time we drove it. People would just stop and stare at the car.
Yeah.
People just don't understand
They don't know what it is. Yeah.
It's such a weird looking car, compared to everything else on the road. And I remember actually people used to ask me, what is that?
Yeah.
And then I used to BMW because of the badges, but
they used to think it was a custom. People used to ask me, did you have it custom made?
Yeah.
They thought it was like a custom BMW.
Because it's such a rare car, you don't see them on the road anymore. Even back then, you hardly ever saw them.
No, they were very rare. And for me, when you talk about memories, mine was Arctic Silver, and my M Coupe was my wedding car.
Okay.
So I actually used it on my wedding. It's in my wedding films and everything. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So for me, it brings back a lot of memories and all the road trips I did in it. So how does it feel? Apart from analog.
Actually, it's pretty good. Obviously, it's got the updated engine.
Yeah.
Needs a bit of tuning.
Yeah, so I've mentioned that we can't fit an Venturi intake in because it doesn't fit because of the size.
I don't worry about that.
So we're either going to do that, we're going to do Evolve Airbox. So for the full induction noise.
Yeah, we'll do that. Although I don't mind making a one-off Venturi for this.
Yeah, we'll see if we can fit one in.
Just for a little while we get the airbox in.
The other things I think we need to sort out is the clutch feels quite heavy, especially when it gets warm, so I think it needs a braided clutch line.
Yeah, that's it. I remember doing that on my one.
If that hasn't been done, and it definitely needs some bushes. The dampers and springs are actually quite new, because we actually fitted them for the customer about 7 years ago. So when I went to see the car, I didn't know that, and I saw the receipt from Evolve for the dampers and the springs that we fitted to the car, and the guy actually had pictures of it being installed at our place.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty cool.
So you obviously loved this car then?
Yeah, he's got a couple of different cars, but yeah, he did. He had it for ages. Yeah, I think he was a bit emotional when he...
It reminds me of me. I remember when I sold mine and the guy was driving off, I just watched it go off in the distance thinking, have I made the right decision there? And then, yeah, ever since I sold it, it was like, I need to get another one.
Yeah. And the wheels, what did you think about the wheels?
Epic. LM's classic wheel. I never had LMs on mine.
Yeah, nor did I.
So I
couldn't afford them.
I couldn't afford that one back in the day, so, you know, I used to look at other Z3M Coupes with LMs and thinking, wow, that's so perfect.
Yeah, and visually, I mentioned earlier, but I think the only thing that I want to do to it is if I can find original AC Schnitzer flippers in a rear wing, because I think that's period correct for this car. It just make it look so good.
Yes.
And there's bits of paintwork that kind of needing tidying up, but we'll get that done next year, I think.
I think let's just enjoy the car for a bit, drive it, let it get a few stone chips.
Oh, we need an exhaust as well.
We need an exhaust.
It is way too quiet.
It needs an intake and an exhaust.
Exhaust, yeah, at the minimum.
Bring it to life.
So we bought this a couple of months ago, and so this is actually, apart from the round the block trip you did, this is the first time you've actually driven, and it's the first time it's actually moved since then, because we parked it up in a corner, and we've been so busy with the Venturi sales that the boxes have been coming in the way. I've not been able to get the car out. It's actually been lost in a swarm of Venturi intakes.
Been blockaded.
Yeah, been blockaded.
And got some dust on it, but yeah, no, it's good to actually get to drive it for the first time.
So this one's not going to be so much of a driving impressions. Once we get back, I'll take the car out on my own, but it's not going to be really fair to give an impression of the car because it does need a little bit of work, but I'll try and give you that. We're going to head back now, I think. So I hope you guys found it interesting to hear our journey, the fact that we both owned one of these and it's taken us a little while to buy another one, but I think for us now, this is anything we buy now is a keeper. I don't see any reason for us to have to sell them.
Yeah, we bought this to keep. We bought this to enjoy ourselves and bring back those memories and when we had one each. So definitely keeping this one, and especially since the prices are now just going mental.
As with anything, like, yeah, all these kind of cars from this era are just going absolutely nuts at the moment.
Yeah, and you know, the more time goes on, the more difficult it's going to be to find one of these in good condition with this engine, especially.
So you know what car's next, right?
Let's start with a C and end in an L. Oh my god, the prices on those are just nutty.
Yeah, if anyone's got a CSL E36 M3, please get in touch. We're interested in buying one
at a reasonable price, please.
There's no such thing as a reasonable price. But yeah, those are getting stratospheric now, so we need to buy one before they go really crazy.
They already are crazy.
Well, but more crazy then.
Yeah, definitely next.
So ejected Bilal out of the car and I can go for a more spirited drive by myself. That noise instantly recognisable to me. I've driven so many S54 engined E36 M3s. But yeah, definitely the steering wheel needs some attention. Matt has mentioned to me there's a bush that degrades over time, and there's a solid version we can get just to improve that steering feel. There's quite a big dead zone in there, but I mean, just putting my foot down and going around that first corner, there's another Z3. It just brings back so many memories. As Bilal was saying, I spent a lot of time in this car over the 3 years that I owned it. I went to Europe in it. I did loads of road trips to the Cotswolds, to Wales, and I really became part of the M Coupe community at the time, and it was part of the reason I started Evolve and was the car that launched that company for me and has led me to where I am now. So you know, cars, people often see them as status symbols or things that are functional, but for me there's always a little bit more to them. The new ones are all obviously things that we need for work, but when we're buying the older cars now, we are really buying a piece of nostalgia. I'll say that the shocks and dampers are very good. The car rides quite nicely, and once the steering has settled to where you want it to go, it handles the bumps and the undulations in the road pretty well, which is what I'd expect from Bilstein B8 dampers. And as I mentioned before, we did fit those for the customer about 7 years ago, and he hasn't done much mileage since then. My old M Coupe was the S50, so it didn't actually have traction control. This one, being the S54, has drive-by-wire, and it also has traction control if you need it. So I kind of went into the deep end and had quite a powerful car at the time without traction control, so that did teach me a lot of respect for rear-wheel drive cars, and it was quite fun doing donuts in it. I kind of learned how to do donuts in that particular car. But yeah, the suspension itself feels pretty tight. It's still good, and that linear power delivery just keeps going. Overall, the car does feel pretty good, as I would expect it to do with this kind of mileage. It has been looked after throughout its life. Brakes still feel pretty good. There's not that many rattles and creaks from inside. The gear shift feels pretty much what I remember it to be, but I did have a storm shift knob on mine and the braided clutch pedal, which did improve it, so that is one thing we're gonna look at straight away. But yeah, these cars, they just bring a smile to your face, and it just looks so cool on the road. Looking in that rearview mirror, seeing that fat arch just brings back so many fond memories for me. You have to remember, it doesn't have much torque, so you have to drop a gear. But yeah, I really can't wait to make this feel like how I remember they were, bring it up to as best condition as we can, and then we'll add the airbox intake and a nice exhaust just to bring out that S54 note. But overall, I'm just really happy that we're in a position now that we do own this beautiful model again. They're only getting more expensive, and I think it was for us a really good time to buy. So I'm going to leave you there, guys. Hopefully we'll have an update video on this car in a month or two for you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please remember to smash that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. If you want to join the conversation, please drop a comment below and we'll try our best to respond to you. If you want to watch more of this project, you can do so over here. If you want to watch what YouTube thinks you might like from our other content, you can do so over here.